Hey everyone, it's Nikki. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joining the 5 Under 5 challenge where I'm sharing 5 cozy DIYs filled with foliage and florals all under $5. This challenge is hosted monthly by Emily at Farm Charm Chic, and our guest host this month is my sweet friend Jette from Craft Along with Jay. Both of their channels will be linked down below, so be sure to check them out. Now let's jump right into our first DIY. Starting out, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's MDF leaves as a template. I traced it onto a drop cloth using one of my retractable markers, and I'm making 3 in total. The first one is going to be the smallest, and then I've got 2 others, each slightly larger than the last. I gave the fabric a quick press with my iron just to smooth it out and made sure to place the marker side facing in so it won't show. Then I went around the edges with my fabric tack, staying close to the edge and leaving a small opening for stuffing. The glue takes a few minutes to set up, so I placed the pieces in front of my desk fan, and it only took a couple minutes for it to cure. This is a super affordable project. If you have drop cloth on hand, it goes a long way. I got mine on Amazon for around $16, and I've had it for a couple years now, so it really does go a long way. I made sure to press the edges real good. I even used my brayer to help a bit. Some spots do need a little extra attention since my fabric tack tends to glob up, especially if the tip is cut too wide. I think that's the problem. I just wiped it off as I went and filled in any missing areas. Once everything was sealed up and that glue was dry, I started adding some polyfill. I didn't want them too puffy, but just enough to hold the shape of a leaf. It can be a little tricky getting the stuffing into those small corners without poking through, but I took my time and got it stuffed, and I think they came out looking pretty good. Once I finished stuffing them, I started sealing them up. I use these little Dollar Tree clamps to hold the sides together while I glued and while my glue cured, and those worked real well. That helped keep everything in place and prevented it from popping back open on me. These came together pretty quickly. The longest part was just cutting them out. They'll have a nice primitive feel once I'm finished, and I love how simple and cozy they are. Next, I'm cutting 3 small strips of drop cloth. Each one is just a couple inches long and maybe an inch wide. I'm doing the same thing with my homespun linen jelly roll fabric that I get, cutting those strips just a little larger than the drop cloth pieces. I use this homespun linen a lot when making primitives. It adds such a nice texture and charm, especially for the vibe that I'm going for. I ran a small bead of hot glue along the edges and pressed the drop cloth right on top of the homespun linen. And these are going to be little tags, and once they're together, I'll go ahead and trim and fray up the edges just to give them that worn look. I thought it would be a cool idea to make some grain sack style stripes to them. So I'm starting with the center stripe, which is going to be the widest. To create it, I'm placing 2 pieces of painter's tape onto my silicone mat, spacing them apart to get the width that I want for the center. Then I'm going to use a small piece of tape across the ends to hold it in place and keep it from shifting. For the outer stripes, I'm using the same method, but the stripes themselves will be thinner. I made 2 since I'm doing more than one set, and painter's tape tends to lose its stickiness pretty quickly. Once they're built and I have them transferred onto my leaf, I'm using Distress ink in the color Walnut. I don't want these lines to be bold, just soft and subtle, and this Distress ink is perfect for that primitive look. As most of you know who have been following me, I work 12-hour night shifts, and on Monday morning, which was yesterday the 4th, we all kind of gravitate towards the window because from where we are, you can see for miles, and our sunrises are almost always amazing. It just so happened that I noticed it before anyone else did, and the sun looked like this glowing peachy orange ball and almost like a perfect globe hanging low in the sky. It was amazing. It was a sight to behold, I'm telling you. I started calling over my coworkers to come look, and one by one, it seemed like they all gathered, and it was quite quick, like the room was full, and everyone was in awe. We all just stood there for a moment, just taking the sight in. Only later did we find out it was because of the poor air quality and the smoke in the atmosphere from the fires in Canada. So I know not everyone is safe right now, and my heart truly goes out to all of those who are being affected. If you're in one of those areas, please know I'm keeping you in my thoughts and prayers. And here's a photo of what that looked like. I'm sure there's photos on Facebook and on the news, but I don't have either. This is just a little bit of me sharing my world with you and what I saw. I'm going to go around the edges using that same Distress ink, and that's just tying everything together real nice. I'm really liking how these look. Then I grabbed a fan brush and some watered down black chalk paint to fleck little specks across the leaves and the tags. This is a small detail, but it really does add to that primitive aged look. This is one of those steps that you can skip altogether if this isn't the look that you're going for, but I love this look, and I often add it to everything that I do that has a primitive look to it. And I always get it all over my hands, and you can see I put some craft paper against my wall so I don't get it all over the fabric on my wall. It's really messy, and I did get it all over my laptop. That shouldn't have been in the way. Once everything was dry, I pulled out my letter stamps, and I used some black ink from IOD, and I spelt out the word fall on each of the tags. It can be hard to get your letters lined up, but I just roll with the imperfections. It's the look that I'm going for, and I always say it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's what I love about primitive vintage. It doesn't have to be perfect. Next, I'm using my awl tool to punch a hole through each one of my tags, and then I'm running a black brad through. This is going to give the illusion that the tag is actually attached to the leaf that way, and I just love that little detail. I'm grabbing some raffia that I picked up at Hobby Lobby this year, and I'm going to tie 3 bows. I'm going to glue my tags onto my leaves, and then I'm going to glue my bows on top of my tags. Then to top off that primitive touch, I'm sprinkling on some nutmeg and cinnamon. It smells so good and looks even better. And then I'm also going to add a few cloves from my stash and glue one of those onto each one of my fall leaves. I'm going to add some faux stitching to all of my leaves as well. And lastly, I'm going to add a fall leaf to each one. And that completes this project. These came out so pretty and really inexpensive to make. I don't think that they could have cost me more than $5 for all of them. I certainly could sell them for more. I have these styled in a wooden bowl with fairy lights and some vintage doilies. Tell me what you think. For a second project, I'm using these large wooden rings and some chunky yarn I found at Goodwill. I got both for just $10 total. This one's super simple, so I won't over explain it. I'm starting by putting a dollop of hot glue on the inside of one of the large rings, placed the end of my yarn into the glue and held it there for a minute until it was set. Then I just kept threading the yarn through the center of the hole and wrapping it around the outside. You'll notice it gets pretty tight the fuller it gets, but I just kept going until I couldn't fit any more yarn through. Once it was packed in, I snipped the end and just tucked it inside the ring. To turn it into a pumpkin or even an apple, I pushed a cinnamon stick right down through the center. For the second one, I used a real stick from my backyard. And I also glued in a little fall greenery. These florals were almost free. I got like a 10-gallon bag filled full of these florals for only a few dollars. And these are really going to last me. I've already used them in so many projects this year. These were so quick and easy, and they came out super cute. They honestly could pass as pumpkins, apples, or just cozy fall decor, whatever fits your style. These were real inexpensive to make. I honestly wouldn't price them any more than $2.50 a piece. Tell me what you think in the comments. Okay, for project number 3, I got this pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. First, I removed the label, cleaned off the extra glue, and gave it a good sanding. I have to apologize, guys. Somewhere along the lines, I lost some footage. I wanted both sides of this pumpkin to be done. So I grabbed some Dollar Tree fabric, a glue stick, and I essentially decoupaged the fabric onto my pumpkin. And this is the side that I lost the footage on. I just sanded off the excess fabric and used this distress ink along the sides. And of course, I wrapped some twine around it and burnt off the little hairs. And then for the other side, I took some Waverly chalk paint in the color celery and painted this side. I didn't worry so much about getting the sides all neat, but I also took this crate and just kind of dried brushed that on there, the same color paint, and then took some wood glue and a little bit of hot glue, gave this some elevation and put these tumbling tower blocks on, and then glued that down to the crate. I put a bunch of glue down, some Spanish moss, more of those florals. I'm just going to let you watch as I put all this together. And that completes this project. This one came out super cute. You have the pumpkin, the crate, the Dollar Tree fabric, and the embellishments. This came out super cute, and I would price it at about $4.50, $5 to make. Tell me what you think of this and which side do you like better? Do you remember that MDF leaf we used in the first project? Well, I'm bringing it back in for this one. I'm taking one of these burlap leaves that I got from the Dollar Tree. They came in a pack of 5, and I'm gluing it onto the back of the leaf. It gives it kind of like a shadow effect and adds a little variation and depth to this. I didn't even bother remove the label. It was on there pretty good. And this is one of those projects that it comes out cute, but it's not going to be one of those forever projects. I'm going to end up tearing this one down at some point. Next, I'm grabbing this wooden round that I've had in my stash forever. I actually had it left over from my wedding that many years ago. I'm using some hot glue to attach it to this Dollar Tree candlestick, and that's going to act like a base. Then I ended up gluing my leaf right on top of them. I glued down some Spanish moss, and honestly, it's looking a little old and shaggy, but that's okay. I actually just got some more in the mail today. I didn't on the day that I made this, but I'm kind of a little sketched out when moss gets too old because who knows what's growing inside of it. Yeah. But I've had these leaves in my stash for a really long time from the Dollar Tree, and I mean a really long time. So I'm finally gonna add these to a project. And I honestly never thought to paint them. I saw my friend Yetta painting leaves, and I'm like, why haven't I ever thought to paint leaves? I don't know. But I'm adding this cute little Dollar Tree pumpkin, some fairy lights, and that completes this project. I think this came out really cute, and I would price this at $5. Tell me what you think of this one. And for our last project, we're going to use a small little round Dollar Tree canvas and some of these transfers that I got on Amazon. I'm going to spray a little tacky glue on here because sometimes when I'm using transfers on canvases, they don't transfer that well. So this seems to work real well when I'm using canvas. I don't have any issues. Once that's transferred, I'm going to use a little distressing. This one's called Antique Linen, and I thought this would kind of bring in the yellow and the orange from the transfer. To seal everything in, I'm going to use some liquid patina by DIY, and I'm so excited to try this. You get to see me try it for the first time. Yeah, I know I get excited about stuff like this. My sweet friend Kendra at Late Night Creation, she uses this, and I wanted to try another decoupage medium slash sealer, and this does both. So I'm really excited. So far, I really like how this came out on this project. And if you're watching, thanks, Kendra. You always have the best tips and tricks to share. And she sent me some treats. I love her so much. She's the best. I glued on a stick from the backyard, added some little tendrils with some floral wire, On the day that I'm making this, I have my fresh Spanish moss, and I really like how this one looks. This is more like a gray, whereas the other one's kind of like a brown, blackish, I guess. I don't know, I like this one a lot better. It looks a little funny right now, but I promise the end result, it looks much better. I'm going to add a few flowers and a leaf, and that's it for this one. Super simple. Lastly, I distressed this with some black walnut stain and added a tumbling tower block to the back as a little stand. And that completes this one. I think this came out real cute, and I wouldn't price this any more than $2. Tell me what you think of this one. And that's where I'll leave you today, friends. I really loved how each of these little projects came together. Simple and cozy and made with love. This was actually my first time joining the 5 Under 5 challenge, and I just want to say a big thank you to Emily from Farm Charm Chic for hosting, and I had such a fun time creating for it, and I hope you enjoyed watching. And don't forget, I have another fun collaboration coming up on the 8th with my sweet friend Jette from Craft Along with Jay, the one that hosted today. It's called All About Animals, and if you love creative animal themed DIYs, you won't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a like and left a comment down below. I always love hearing from you, and I read every single one. And if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and join our little creative corner. I want this space to feel like a happy place, a space where everyone feels welcome, inspired, and encouraged to create. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until the next one, guys. Bye.